Just making a couple final edits to this video, but before we start, I want to let you know that it's a little bit different from what I normally post, but there's just so much information that I really wanted to share it. Kevin starts off talking about these wild plants that can heal wounds. We make a shelter. We learn how to make a snare to trap wild game. We make fire using a rock on the beach. And yeah, there's just a ton of information, all stuff we can incorporate into future videos. So a little bit different, but I hope you enjoy it. Sit back, enjoy. Here we go.
I used to work up here as a shepherd, and like at one point I had a kid, like baby duck. I had a baby goat, a kid, jam its horn between my fingers, between my ring finger and pinky finger, and it went so deep I couldn't see the back of the hole. And I put yarrow on that, crushed it up and put it on there, and I did it every day for like maybe a week. But after 20 minutes, the first time, it closed up the wound, and I kid you not, I don't know if it was this hand or this hand because there's no scar at all. And that thing, that's like a dirty goat horn back in here, and it healed me up perfectly. So I love that plant. We're gonna kind of orient like the ridge pole of the shelter here, and we're gonna have it sloped this way so that the wind kind of comes off, and you'll be able to retain as much body heat as possible inside the shelter. But before we even construct the frame, we're gonna make a bed, and it's gonna seem a little weird at first, but what we need is a bunch of sticks, like jagged, pokey looking stuff that does not look like it would be fun at all to sleep on, this kind of stuff. What we're gonna do is make like this kind of interlocked box spring basically. And so we're gonna stack that up about like this, and then over the top, we'll put a bunch of comfortable grass and pine needles and things like that. And so then that'll be your mattress. And it's really important to do that because the earth is going to get real cold at night, and if you don't put down a whole bunch of insulation and some room between you and the ground, the earth basically just sucks all of your body heat out, and you can get hypothermia overnight doing that. A tremendous amount of time to build a bed that I would actually spend the night on. If I was going to do this, I'd probably want it about that thick before I start putting everything else on. Now we're going to cover this up with some of this grass and some of this pine needle to make it nice. Lean-to is basically like a leaning roof. It's going to be open on one side. So it's just very, very simple. We're just going to have a main ridge pole. We're going to have some supports in the ground. It's going to be kind of like that shape. And it's just going to shed the wind. And if the rain comes, hopefully it's riding the wind and it'll hit the roof and then come down. And you'll be over here on this side, nice and comfortable. All right. Yeah, so let's see. Paracord is over there. Can you grab that? And then let's tie this up. So who's got a knife? That should always be the answer. So one of you is gonna sharpen this one up. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can either hold it up like so and do one of these. You're cutting away from yourself. Chris and Harry, you guys are gonna modify these.
So what did Kevin tell you to do?
I had to take the knife, cut the stick down to a sharp point, and he said you either do it like, you know, the knife going away from you, or you can put it on top of another piece of wood, and then you could hack at it. But I don't have the proper knife for it.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of doing the same thing, just on a smaller scale, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's taking forever.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
If you can snare. And before I would even recommend trying to snare or make traps or anything like that, I would recommend fishing if there's ever an option. So if you're around freshwater streams or lakes, fishing is going to be one of your best bets of getting meat protein other than going for like insects. You should be doing this with snare wire, but it's okay. The advantage of the wire is if that thing goes around an animal's neck, it's going to cinch down and it's not going to come back. It's going to be stuck in its form. And so if you have, some of these snares are very basic. It's just like a loop and a stake, and you put it right at the entrance of where a rabbit might come in and out of the brush, and it goes through, it goes around its neck. The rabbit starts to pull, and within about 30 seconds it's going to pass out and then it's going to die. So it's pretty painless, but it's also kind of brutal, you know? The way I like to do it is using spring pole snares, and that way the spring pole will whip and break the animal's neck, and then it's very quick.
More humane, right? So
More
the animal
humane.
doesn't suffocate to death, it kind of snapped neck.
Yep, exactly. So all I did was the same loop that we did before. I'm running it through. So now we have this slip knot, right?
Slip knot, okay.
Very, very simple. We're gonna drive this thing into the ground. So let's drive it right here. And we wanna really drive it down in there. Nice.
More?
Nope, that's good. Okay. So, you know, if you get up before sunrise and you start walking around really, really slowly, you'll see these rabbits popping out and you'll see which trails are actually being used. And so if you're very quiet, you can go set your snares, and then maybe, especially with cottontails, they're very curious. So if they get spooked, they run into the brush and they hide. That's their predator avoidance mechanism. They don't just bolt, not like a jackrabbit, which is like a hare. And instead, if you go away and you just sit there quietly, they'll come back out because they want to check to see if everything's clear. And if they come back out and go through your snare, now you got breakfast. Legally, we cannot use these snares in California. They're totally illegal. You could probably use them for gophers or something like that, and I'll probably do that on a video at some point. But yeah, there are tons of cottontails out here. There's brush rabbits out here. There's jackrabbits. There's quail. There's a lot of game species. And if it's not green, I would definitely suggest using a hardwood. So this particular one is actually apple wood. So then we're gonna tie this guy through that little groove. I need something that's going to allow me a noose on the ground, so enough tension, or enough slack that it's got a noose on the ground. And I also need to be able to tie a stick to it here. So we got one stick that's tied here, and this is, I just put a loop in it. It's not even really tied, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to make a loop down at the bottom here that's going to be the actual noose, like so. And we're going to drive these guys down into the ground like this. Pound them down so they're good and sturdy. Yeah, like that. So when you're bending this thing down, don't put your face up here. It's gonna smack you one good. We don't want that. And then we're gonna put this top one up here. We're gonna put this toggle stick here. Okay. This is where I say if you've made your snare properly, this part should scare the heck out of you. Because if it goes off, it should break your finger. And this is why the old trappers always had like missing digits. Technically, I would make this noose way bigger if I had the right string. I would make that second loop much smaller and tighter. But basically what happens is you've set this in a rabbit run. The other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take sticks and drive them in the ground all the way up to here. And the rabbit trail comes here. Even if it smells like a human and it wants to go around, this is the only place it can go. You're gonna do it out on the other side as well. So if it's coming home or going out, it has to go through here. And when it does, it's gonna step on this stick right here, and that's it. So that's gonna grab its leg though, right? So now you got a live rabbit that's going crazy. And one more reason to use snare wire is it's gonna be really hard to chew through.
So walking through kind of the foresty area now, Kevin has got the group and he is stopping every 5 feet or so, talking about all kinds of plants, probably talked about 10 of them already. I'm not gonna include too many of them, but if you're into that, you wanna find out about these local plants, he's the guy to talk to. Right now we're walking to the ocean, to the intertidal zone. It's low tide, and we're gonna try to find something to eat. So included on a trip like this is a meal, sometimes. Man, it's been a while since I've been down to a place like this, low tide. We're gonna forage some mussels if we could find any, see if we can find any sea urchin. And then Kevin's got an idea to cook it all up here. I've also got an idea to do a camping trip down here. So I think I'm gonna do that, and I might even utilize one of the shelters that we learned. It's about 3:30. We've been out here for almost 4 hours. When you come out with Kevin, it's probably a 6-hour trip. I don't know how much he charges for it, but it's a damn good deal for a private lesson like that, especially if you're in the Bay Area. Harry came up from LA. He also has a YouTube channel. It's called Slappy-O Daddy. Apparently he went into a cooking competition, never been in before, with other world-class chefs, and he won the competition. So now he's got his own YouTube channel, Slappy-O Daddy. first time I've heard about it, but that's really cool. So I'm gonna join the group again, see what Kevin's talking about here.
Chitin.
Chitin.
Kind of a slug.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess more like a mollusk, but I don't think it is actually a mollusk. It's got a weird exoskeleton with a whole bunch of like shell plates.
Okay.
I guess they do eat them, like indigenous peoples on the north coast.
Man, low tide foraging is always so cool, especially coming out to a place that you're familiar with, but you've never been at low tide. Look at the size of these mussels. They're about 7 inches long. Crazy big. I've never seen them that big before. I want to do a little more exploring. Yeah, I might leave Kevin with these guys and just explore around this whole area for a little bit. So scouting out this area, looks like Chris, he's about to start poke poling. He brought a poke pole and some waders. I'm just scouting it out, seeing if there are any good poke poling spots. It looks like there's a few deep holes in between the big rocks, and you already know that's what you want to look for. The big boulders underneath, there's probably an undercut. So let's see if Chris can pull out an eel. Most likely we'll cook that up soon.
We are having some fresh uni. It's a nice female too, and it's super sweet. Yep.
All right.
All of that is totally edible.
Thanks to Professor Kevin, my first wild uni here. Wow. The uni is kind of creamy, milky, and it's got a kind of the taste of the ocean. There's nothing fishy about it at all, and it's absolutely amazing. So if you never try uni fresh from the ocean, you definitely have to do that. Okay, so the way you do, you crack the edge, right?
Yep.
The fry bar.
And then I'm gonna dump out the Aristotle's lantern. That's the beak.
Okay.
That's this. It looks like something out of a horror film.
Okay, that's
And then there's 5 strips in here because it's the cousin to the sea star, so it's arranged in 5s. And we're gonna crack between there, and we have to crack off to the side here. I try to go between them. Yeah. You can see this is a male though. That's why it's white.
Normally I'm not the biggest fan of uni or sea urchin, but this stuff is so fresh, and I haven't really seen it looking this good, so. I mean, it doesn't taste bad. It's really not for me. Just nothing that I would go out of my way to get. But I can see why people would love it. It's something that you don't taste every day.
Broadly speaking, it's like survival skills, right? And some of those survival skills are just like how you could get food on a daily basis. Like I take people free dive spear fishing, hook and line fishing from shore, crab snaring, clamming, mussels, crab, like rock crab, monkey-faced eels for sure. I take people specifically for uni, wild plant identification. There's a lot of delicious greens right now we could go for. And when it's raining, wild mushroom identification. I'll teach people how to identify wild, edible, and deadly poisonous mushrooms, and then after we do the course, then you have the opportunity to come forage with me, and then I usually cook up a nice little gourmet mushroom appetizer out there in the woods. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is my email, catchthenletterin.cookca@gmail.com.
Yeah, what is that, black and yellow?
Yeah, really bad. Once we get a hold of him, we're going to bop him so it's not suffering at all, and then we're going to use a mussel shell to scrape the scales to scale it, and then we're going to make a stone tool from a rock right over here. We're going to gut it, and then we're going to cook it on a flint and steel fire.
We have a slight problem. one sharp blow.
Bam. I'll give him a couple. And then I also am a firm believer in braining my fish just so that there's no suffering for sure.
Okay. All right. You may need this patch.
And then when his mouth opens,
Yeah.
we get back our bait.
Okay.
And also when his mouth opens and his eyes dilate, you know he's dead. So this guy is not suffering.
All right, Chris over here, just deep ledge. You feel any bites? Dang, dude, this is so cool. Damn, this is epic in here. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Chris to come over here on this side. Those holes, oh man, there's fish in there. Not even just eels, but there's fish in there.
All right, gathered up some Franciscan chert. I got a nice hammerstone of sandstone. We'll see if it's strong enough. This stuff is really tough. And we're gonna use this to get our fire going with my flint. Well, this is the flint with my steel that's in here. And so this is my char cloth tin, and the steel is just made from an old, whoop, don't drop your char cloth, made from an old file. It's high carbon steel. It's made by Red Yeti, I believe. I'm gonna place this right here on the actual core, and as I'm bringing the striker down, it's going to shear off sparks or molten pieces of metal that'll bounce up on top here. We just need one of these to catch. Got it. Get some tinder here.
Smoke.
Woohoo!
Whoa, we have fire.
Bam.
Bam. Wow. That's amazing.
We get all this on there, try not to smother it. And then I've stripped up some redwood. This is redwood driftwood. I tried to split it into small pieces. It starts to go out, we can blow on it again. We want small pieces to start with because you need a lot of surface area initially, or else the flame won't transfer from this grass to like big diameter stuff. So I'm trying to find the smaller pieces. And then also Matt's gathered up a bunch of this pampas grass, which is basically like an invasive paper that's growing on all the hillsides over here. And this stuff, as you've seen just now, goes up like crazy. So the pampas flowering head is what I just used as my tender bundle. It took Matt's like 10 minutes to gather this stuff up. So it's abundant, it's not supposed to be there, works really, really well. And you're just gonna run it like this against the grain. And I found these in the archaeological record, just like this, with all the scales still attached. You can actually find like the fish bones are here, they're burned. This is sitting here. There's a couple of stone tools. It's like, I don't know, interpreting human behavior from artifacts is like the coolest thing. Can you hold that? There we go. All right, so we're gonna just lay this thing down in the coals.
The survival class is amazing.
Yeah, we did a lot today. You know?
Did a lot. We did lean-tos, we did traps, 2 different types of traps.
That was probably my favorite.
Oh yeah, that was great. I'm just glad we didn't catch anything though. And I feel like now I could go out and start cooking some mussels with no problem and making a fire easily.
Yeah.
So everyone should take care of this class. I think it's great.
I agree. All right, well, that was something a little bit different. We just finished up the food. It's just, I don't know, it's just a really cool experience to be out here all day, and especially to see the sunset right now. You know, some of my favorite memories are being out here when the sun goes down and there's no one around you, and you know, you're just alone, even though we're with a group of people. It's really cool because you get to share this moment. So something different. Hope you enjoyed it. A little different, but back to the regularly scheduled programming soon enough. All right.